Sports with Mickey. This podcast is live and direct from the Windhoek Palm Hotel. Hi, welcome to Sports with Mickey. This is a home of everything sports, whether you love rugby, basketball, football, or just, you're just an enthusiast and you just want to trying to figure out what is your sports what is your favorite. So this is your home. We're going to bring you everything, we're going to give you the teas. Speaking of tea, today I am joined by, he is my fellow Real Madrid fan, like he's the second biggest Real Madrid fan I know, after me, of course. And of course, now he's the only, out of 3 million people, the only Newcastle supporter. He's also a lecturer, sports lecturer at NAST. NAST?
Yes, NAST.
Okay. He's also a sports agent. Welcome, Mr. Peter Haufiku.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you? Are you excited for today's show?
I'm very excited.
You're excited?
I've seen a couple of episodes, so I'm excited to be
that's good. That's good.
on the platform.
Thank you. So tell me a little bit, just tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the real business.
Okay, so elevator pitch. I'll just give you something quite quick. My name is Peter Haufiku. I'm obviously from Namibia. But I grew up outside. So I was born in Germany, grew up in Belgium, studied in South Africa, in Finland, in Scotland, and as well as in Spain.
International bay!
So yeah, I've lived in quite a few places. Finally moved back home 2020. End of 2020, opened the agency 2021. I've just loved sports my whole life. It's been a massive part of my life. As you know, I've moved quite a lot of countries. So sport was the only consistent thing that I had in my life. That time I played a lot of football and basketball as well. But then with football, I retired at age 16. And with basketball, I just retired last year. So yeah.
Last year?
Why
last year? Why did you stop?
I just stopped because I couldn't give as much to the sport as I would have liked. I was just a little bit too busy. Yeah. Plus, as you mentioned, I'm a lecturer. So some of my evening classes would clash with practices. And then I would go months without going to practice. And then go to games and then I'm not performing to my standards. So I just decided I think it's time to just maybe play for fun and not necessarily join a team or anything like that.
What team were you on?
I was on the UNAM Rebels.
Oh, you were in the Rebels.
Yeah.
Did you know I had one of the basketball players?
Yeah, I saw the Money Mike one.
Money Mike, yeah.
So he's been a teammate of mine for the last 2 years, but I was on the Rebels about 2 years before he joined. But he has bounced around the league and done extremely well. He played in South Africa as well. So he's our captain. So he's a
baller.
Very good guy. Yeah, very good guy.
Okay. So what inspired you? And also what can you tell us about being someone that has been in sports like your whole life? What inspired you to go into sport and what have you learned from sport?
Where do I even start with that? Sport has just been my whole life. If you ask anybody from when I was 3 years old till now, they would just say sports. So I didn't really have a second choice. I never wanted a second choice. Even when I was applying for universities, it was either sports management or I wasn't studying at all. So they would always ask me, what's your second, what's your third choice? I just didn't have that because I just feel like having a plan B or plan C distracts from plan A. So that's what I was born to do. That's my calling, and that's why I'm within this industry.
That's dope. I'm inspired. So, what is the one takeaway that something you learn from sport that you apply in your everyday life, like relationships or business?
Yeah.
Like what is that?
There's a lot of different lessons. One of the main ones is like hard work. Teamwork is also a massive one. Because you need to be able to work with people in order to reach a common goal. Yeah. Another thing is dedication. You need to, be able to do it consistently. Even when you see things are not working out, you need to maintain that work ethic and that ability to keep going. Resilience. And also how to win and how to lose. That's something that's quite underrated because you're not always going to win in life. Loss. Exactly. Yeah. So when you lose, how do you bounce back? Do you now wallow away? Do you go and cry in the corner? Or do you stand up and try and, do something good with whatever it is that you did? I mean, even with the wins and the losses, I'll just give you an example with the agency. So as you know, I've created Namibia's first ever agency. And that came through, thank you very much. That came through a loss. Yeah. Because at the time I was studying, I studied at Real Madrid Graduate School. And when I was there, we had a course based off of agencies
Yeah.
and representation and all of that. And within that course, I actually failed that course because we went from doing face-to-face classes to then doing it online because of COVID. And, you know, me doing online, I'm a person that learns through interaction, speaking with lecturers, speaking with my classmates and things like that. But then now with COVID, there was nothing like that. It's like you just have your books and that's it. So unfortunately, I failed that subject. And in retaking it and restudying it, I learned that there's a gap in the market in Namibia for that. I knew I was always going to come back home. So now, you know, after restudying it, I focused on it. I realized that this is a way forward for me. So that's now what I do for a living. And it came at a loss because I failed the subject at the end of the day. So that's just something to kind of inspire the next generation, the students now are about to start now university from next month onwards, the high school kids and things like that, to say that even if you fail a module, even if you fail a class, even if you fail a grade or a year, it's not over. You know, there's always a redemption part of it. And there's definitely more that you can do that. The only thing that we have to do is we have to learn from our losses.
That's amazing. I mean, that's also one of the reasons, like when I started this podcast, it's also to touch on mental health.
Yes.
And one thing that affects our mental health is failure.
Yes.
And once we learn how to tackle failure in anything,
yes,
it's going to be easier on us. I mean, as we try and fail, get up, try again.
Yes.
And that is a very good thing to take away from that.
Yeah.
So speaking of your agency, because I see you want to breeze, I wanted to get to know you.
No, we can still go back a little bit.
As a Real Madrid, as a fellow Real Madrid fan, you know, and by the way, you just woke up one day and you decided, you know what, I'm going to support Newcastle. I mean, there's better teams with more history, like, you know, there are stronger teams. What made you just start and say, you know what, Newcastle it is?
You know what, I'm actually quite proud of that decision, man.
Why?
It was very calculated.
You wanted to go to Man U, didn't you?
No, I mean, I just support Man U mainly, or not necessarily support, mainly because I'm a Real Madrid fan. And a lot of the Real Madrid players go to Man U, Manchester United. And these are legends of the club. So generally I gravitate towards that team, but I didn't want to be a supporter of that team because
obvious reasons.
There's what's going on there. But also I didn't want to support any of the teams at the top of the log, like the Liverpools. I mean, obviously Nottingham Forest is there now, but it's just too obvious. Everybody knows that team is, and they have a fan base already within Africa and within Namibia in particular. I don't want to follow any of the bottom teams because I don't want stress in my life. I like, you know what I mean?
It's the fact that they said bottom teams and looked at me. I don't like that. Shade.
The middle team was the one where it was like, okay, Newcastle. But why Newcastle? Newcastle also because they have new owners. They also have now billionaire owners who are going to invest a lot of money into the club. So I'm joining at a point where they're in the middle, knowing that eventually they will be at the top.
Oh, I see. You see the vision.
You know, I'm always trying to plan long term.
You see the vision. And they're doing good. I mean, Isaac, Hall.
Yeah, they're all doing extremely well.
They're doing very well. And they play this type of football. I think I mentioned it on the show that I'm on.
Yes.
The pre-match show on One Africa. So I think I mentioned it on that show. And it's one of the teams I enjoy watching. Newcastle and Liverpool. But currently, I can't say my team. Because I enjoy a fast-paced type of football.
Exactly, and they play very fluid.
Very fluid.
They pass the ball.
Transition is like quick in transition.
Exactly.
So I love that type of football.
Exactly.
So speaking of football, let's move into the sport agency now.
Yes.
Because a lot of people are under the impression that when you say sport agency, is it just football or just sports in general?
Well, we have mostly football players. We did delve into other sports. We had a few rugby players as well. We sent one of our players to Czech Republic and to Poland on separate occasions as well. But we decided to step away from rugby because we weren't able to give our full, wholehearted service to them.
Because your whole heart is still in football.
It's always within football, but we want to do all sports. But sometimes when you do too much, you don't do enough. Sometimes you'll sign players from, let's say we had, a netball player as well. We couldn't really help her as much because our network within netball isn't extensive. I see. And in order for us to do that, obviously you need investment. In order to get money, you need to provide value. So with us, we are able to provide more value within football. As I said, I've lived all over the world within reason, and I've built a lot of footballing connections through that. So I'm trying to basically filter our players to try and get them these different opportunities, which will in turn bring money into the agency, which we can then move into other different sports. But sometimes if you do too much, if you bite off more than you can chew, your reputation goes with that, and that's never good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, how many players or athletes do you have at the
Currently, we
agency?
have six players under our agency. A couple of them play internationally.
I know of the one that plays in South Africa.
Yes, so we have Jocelyn in South
Yeah,
Africa,
Jocelyn.
Jocelyn Kamatuka. We have his brother Chulu or Edmar Kamatuka as well. And we're also trying to now facilitate other players going.
Yeah.
We have somebody now currently on trial. We won't say who it is. There will be breaking news very soon. But we
On trial where?
don't worry about it.
I think I know, but you know what? But this would be the best opportunity to announce.
Not at all, because within football, there's one thing that I've learned is you don't speak about it until the pen is on the paper, until the pictures are taken with the team, and then you know that it's 100% official.
And the T-shirt is there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
So what is the importance of a player, a soccer player, especially a country like Namibia? What is the importance of them having an agent?
I believe it's very important. Some players don't. A lot of the older players are actually used to doing their own thing anyway. So even if they have an agent, they're going to speak to the teams themselves. But I think it gives you some sort of advantage when it comes to negotiation. Because, for example, for us, we will know how much players make in that specific position at your specific age, in order for us to now gauge to see how we can now negotiate your contract.
Yeah.
But what we're finding is that because we don't have a fully professional league, a lot of our players are actually starving. They're hungry.
Yeah.
They have the talent. They have the skill set, but they're so desperate that whenever a team comes, they jump.
Yeah.
If a team comes to say, listen, I'm buying you a flight ticket, come through, they're on that next flight ticket telling nobody. You know what I mean? So having an agent gives you that different professionalism that filters what you're saying to the different clubs. Because I don't mind being the bad person, but if you speak directly to the team and you want maybe more money, the team will be like, no, this guy wants more money. The fans will turn on you. It can be ugly. But if an agent comes, it's like, okay, no, it's the agent. Maybe the agent is the problem.
Yeah.
So I don't mind taking that or bearing that cross for the players. Also, when it comes to planning career life, life after sports, we understand that football is a young man's game.
Yeah.
That you'll see the Messis and the Ronaldos play until 40, but that's an anomaly.
Yeah,
Most players
that's
retire at age 34.
Like Tony Kroos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those are the ages that people normally retire at, and especially because of our players, they don't necessarily stay within the professional parameters, let's say. Our players enjoy life a lot. They don't necessarily have a diet plan or whatever it is, so that eats into your career as well. So what are you doing between the age of 35 and 60? Right? Everybody else retires at age 60.
Yeah.
That's a lot of years.
That is a lot
so
of years.
what are you doing? And how are you positioning yourself right now to try and make it a sustainable income for the future?
That's amazing. So what measures do you have in place for, to guide players for a life after football?
For now, we just try and give them advice. We try and, look at what they're interested in. And then we try and position them to that. We try and get them, education if it's at a specific level. Some of our players are actually, my students at either the college, which is here at AIMS, which is the AIMS School of Sports, ASOS, or NAST. So we try and, make sure that, they either had an education, or if they're a little bit older, maybe a business plan or something that they're trying to get into. We also try and get them endorsement deals as well. So these are the different, avenues that we try and look at to make sure that the players have multiple streams of income, because at the end of the day, it's lovely to have a job. It's lovely to be a professional footballer or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, that's not going to sustain you long term.
Yeah.
What is your plan?
Can you explain what image rights and endorsement deals are typically structured?
Okay. So with different companies, there are different ways that they are structured. There's no one size fits all, right? So there's an endorsement deal, and then there's a sponsorship deal. Endorsement deal normally has something to do with money or equity of some sort.
Yeah.
So they can either give you a certain amount of money, or they can give you a certain % of the sales that you bring in, right? Those are the two. And then sponsorship is just they give you free stuff in order to endorse their product. So those are the two different deals. And then when it comes to now getting the players involved with that, it just depends. We always want to get our players involved with products that they believe in, products that they use daily, because it's harder to represent, a brand that you don't use. You know what I mean? So it needs to be something that's generic and something that makes sense. Also, we try and find out what the company's what their direction is, because at the end of the day, if you come to, let's say, a gambling company as a football player, it's not a good look. It doesn't align with what it is that you're doing, because some of these companies are sport betting companies, right?
Yeah.
And if you have a player on that, you can get in a lot of trouble. We've seen with Ivan Toney in England. He got suspended for X amount of games because he was involved in gambling with games that he's playing. So how that is a conflict is that if I'm a player and I'm, let's say, a defender, I can tell my friend, listen, just put 100,000 Namibian dollars on Peter Haufiku getting 2 yellow cards within halftime. That time I just slide tackle everybody and then I get my yellow cards, my friend gets his money, I get a cut of that. That's how it doesn't really work. So you need to make sure that the brand is in line with what the player is doing as well. Yeah.
Okay. How does you by the way, the company is EPSA. Please follow them, EPSA. So EPSA, right?
EPSA 27, yeah.
And it's FIFA approved.
Yes, we definitely are. We got our license. We're able to also represent minors. So we are looking at quite a few of the players who recently took part in the COSAFA tournament.
Under-17s.
The under-17 tournament. Mainly because we see that obviously the adults are, doing extremely well.
Yeah.
But oftentimes teams are looking for younger players. So if we can scout them at a younger age, it makes a little bit more sense for us moving forward. So we're kind of now looking into that and, the Hopsol League and doing all of that with the youth, because now we have the license to do so.
That's awesome. So what strategies do you guys employ to get players? Or what do you look at in order to sign players?
Okay, there's a lot that we look at. Firstly, obviously, raw talent. That's extremely important.
Yeah.
But something a little bit more important than that is their professionalism. And professionalism, I mean, not necessarily getting paid like a professional, but you need to be a professional before you can get paid like a professional.
Yeah.
And that means, being tidy. We speak to the family, we speak to the coaches, we speak to, different journalists who've watched them over the years. We make sure that they're able to, because we're kind of putting our reputation on the line by sending these players out. Now, say, for example, we send a player to Poland, right? They're used to here being in Namibia. You have your family, you have your friends, you have your people. You walk down Grove Mall, everybody's greeting you. You had a great game. Everybody loves you. You go to Poland, nobody knows you, right? Nobody knows you. It's cold. There's not a lot of people with your skin tone. The food is not the same. The weather, it's dark. Like, and in Europe, it's man for themselves. Everybody's on their own. So you can't go to your neighbor and ask for bread or whatever it is. So we need to make sure that they would be able to sustain themselves throughout that period of time and make sure that they persevere through that period of time. Another thing that we also look at is training. We try and find them and watch them in training as well, to make sure that we see how they conduct themselves at practice. We also watch how they warm up, how they cool down, how they take instruction, how they react when they lose the ball. Those are all things that, I mean, even positioning, for example. Like, a player might be great with the ball at their feet, but then the moment they lose the ball, they don't know where to be. They, always caught offside or whatever it is. So these are all small little things that we do look at. Players approach us oftentimes looking for agents. Sometimes we approach players and try and pursue them to try and see, but it's all just a balance. And that's basically, those are the different things that we look at.
Like in terms of when you are signing a player, let's say it's a player from young Brazilians. How do you ensure transparency when you are making those deals from this club to the next? Like,
transparency with who?
With clubs and players.
Okay, with the clubs, you just basically just tell the truth. With the player, what we like to do is we like to have like a WhatsApp group with the player, myself, my partner, and then the family. Yeah. But not all the family. We're talking about 1 or 2 people max. 2 people maximum, because sometimes if you have too many cooks in the kitchen, it takes long for decisions to be made, right? So what we do is we normally put all the communication in there. If there's a team I'm speaking to, sometimes I'll just, forward the message or whatever it is within the group, just to say, listen, this is what the club said. What do you guys think about this? This is what we feel like you should do. but what is your perception on this? And then normally the family would go with what we think. Sometimes they would have their own opinion or whatever it is. We normally try and do this with the younger players. I think the older players we can communicate with directly. They know what they want. They know what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
Especially the players 25 and up. But if you're talking about players like 19, 20, 21, they're normally still under the parents' care. And we try and make sure that we're transparent with them and let them know that what happens. Because sometimes there will be other agents involved. There will be other teams involved. And the team might want, because I'm quite a tough negotiator, the team might want, the player to leave me as an agent and go with them directly.
Yeah.
And then they would try and tell the player, no, the agent said this and this and this. But then that would happen. But when that happens, they will come back to me and say, listen, we already know because you've already been so transparent with us.
Yeah, that's good.
So people don't always have the best interest at heart, especially within football.
Yeah, speaking of interest, how do you ensure, like as an agent, that the players are not, especially younger players, since you mentioned you're looking at under 17, how do you ensure that they are not exploited, these young players?
I mean, by just having an agent, you just need somebody to make sure that the contract is in line with what you're trying to do. What we try and do is as well not to try and sign too long contracts, because if you sign a long contract, you have less flexibility within what you want to do. A lot of these teams that want players from Namibia want players at free.
Yeah.
And local clubs don't always want to sell or don't want to give players for free. They always want something in return. But it becomes a little bit difficult because we don't have footage, we don't have stats, we don't have the FIFA ranking. We don't really have much in terms of what we have. We have a lot of talent, but we don't have much to tell that team what the player is worth.
That is
right?
true. That is true.
So what we're trying to basically do to try and do that is we're trying to convince the clubs to understand that they might value their player at this, but that outside club doesn't, because they don't know your player.
That's true.
So it's better for us to let the player go for free. And then later on the sell-on, whenever that player goes to a Kaizer Chiefs or Orlando Pirates or wherever it is that they go, when that team is, buys the player, then you as a club from Namibia can get 15 to 20% of that total deal. That's how you can get your payback, because you're kind of banking on the player doing well. Going back to your question in terms of how do we make sure that the player is good, we just have to read the contract, make sure that it's in line with what it is that they're trying to do.
Make sure that the team also follows the contract.
Exactly, because sometimes we'll sign a contract with a team and they might not pay the player for like 2 months. That becomes a little bit difficult on the player, because now financially the family have to send him money. I might have to send the player money, and it just becomes a little bit of a strain.
You guys are lawyers? You have lawyers in place? Yeah. Oh, are you a lawyer?
No. I'm not a lawyer, but we do have a couple of lawyers that read over our contracts, that read over the team contracts.
Yeah.
But it's quite standard in what we do, because FIFA provides us with contracts.
Yeah.
Provides different clubs also with their contracts. It's at least like a blueprint of what needs to be in.
That was what normally changes.
What normally changes is just the numbers.
True.
So it's just kind of holding them to that standard and making sure that is what it is. And that's why it's also important to have an agent, because it becomes difficult as a player to walk into the chairman's office and ask for your money.
Yeah.
But if I'm as an agent speaking directly to the chairman, having continuous conversation with him, it becomes easier for me to be like, hey, my guy hasn't been paid in this amount. At least give him half until you can figure out the rest, and then kind of pay him. That's just a problem that we're facing currently in Africa. A lot of teams maybe miss 1 or 2 months.
Yeah.
But it's also that acumen to let the players know, to say, listen, just because you receive this amount of money doesn't mean you have to spend it all.
The
you
financial
need to make
literacy
sure
and
that you have that backup, because you need some sort of saving in order for these type of things. You need 2 months worth of salary in your savings pocket that you can manage straight away. You need a separate investment over time. There's so many different strategies that we try and get our players to do. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't.
They don't.
Sometimes.
That's good. So you also mentioned something when in terms of contract negotiations. Oh my gosh. In terms of contract negotiations, it kind of reminded me of Endrick from Real Madrid.
Yes.
Where the former club has a contract with Real Madrid that if he scores a goal, they give him a certain amount. Please give us a bit of a detail on that. And is that type of negotiation deal important, or do you think? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important, especially for young players that are not really proved that have not been proven yet. I don't know if I'm
Yeah, like,
grammatically
especially
correct
for a
there.
country like Namibia.
Exactly. So with them, I believe it's 35,000 euros per goal, 35,000 euros per assist, and then a certain amount. I don't think it's 35, maybe around 20 to 15,000 euros per appearance. That's basically what Real Madrid have to pay his previous club because of that deal. So how that basically works is that let's say the team wanted X amount. They wanted, let's say, 60 million for him. But then Real Madrid only wanted to pay 30 million for him. Now, in order to now justify that, you can put in the contract, okay, if he scores these amount of goals, you need to give us the money. If he scores this amount of assists, you need to give us. If he makes this amount of appearances, you need to give us the money. That kind of now closes that gap between the 30 and the 60 that they wanted. So that's a normal negotiation that they would use. That's something that we are also looking into to try and get teams to focus on these type of things and kind of bank on the players doing well.
Yes.
Because sometimes we want the money at face value. That shows me that you don't really have trust in the player himself, or you don't feel like the player will elevate and do quite well. So let's just trust our players to do well, and let's make sure that they get into professional situations and not sign them to such long contracts on long bad contracts for them that, you know, they're basically zulaing for money here locally because they don't make ends meet. But their talent itself, the talent in their legs can take them anywhere.
What is the toughest negotiation that you have been?
Oh, 100% has to be African stars. 100%.
They're my tribe, so I understand.
No, they are very difficult. Not difficult. They're lovely people.
And they are lawyers, so that makes them even a little bit
exactly.
Even
They're just tough. They're just tough negotiators.
Yeah.
They know the value of their club.
Yeah.
They know the value of their players. They don't budge easily. They also sign players on long-term contracts, so we have to go and negotiate with them. But we have a good relationship, so that's always good. It started off a bit rough in the beginning because I'm also quite I feel like I'm also quite a tough negotiator, and I'm willing to leave the table. Yeah. So I always feel like if you're not willing to leave the table, you're at a disadvantage. The moment you can say, this deal is not good enough for me, I'm going to go somewhere else, that's where you have the most advantage. So with them, it started off a bit rough, but we have a very good relationship.
That's good.
We bump into each other at the football matches the whole time. He comments on my weight, so it's fine. but yeah, it's all good. Definitely African stars.
African stars.
Yes.
I love that. Oh, so this was such an amazing talk. And it brings me to the part that I hate the most, and that is now, saying goodbye to you. But before I let you go...
time flies when you're having fun, eh?
I know, right? Before I let you go, I just want to ask you, something general. Just a general question, but obviously sport related. What do you think about sports in general in Namibia? Like, what is the future of sports for Namibia looking like?
Okay, that's a loaded question. Very good question, by the way. I feel like we have a lot of potential, especially when it comes down to the individual athletes. I believe that our administrators are doing the best that they can, but we can do more. And I feel like once we do get that in order, in terms of the administration, in terms of the ministry, in terms of, the different brands, the different sponsors, once we do get all on the same page, the sky's the limit. But I feel like in order for us to do that, we need to make sure that whatever resources are given to the different federations, it's used for the right purpose.
Yeah.
Because if it's mismanaged, that doesn't give confidence for the next company to invest.
That is true.
Once we do that, once we're able to put the money where it's supposed to be, the sky's the limit for us. Because I feel like more companies will come in. I feel like foreign companies will also be able to come in.
Yeah.
And I feel like at the end of the day, more money will be flowing within the industry. It will be self-running.
Yeah.
And I think that is going to be factual within the next 5 to 10 years.
That's awesome. That's a very good takeaway. Thank you so much, Mr. Peter Haufiku.
Thank you for having me.
CEO of EPSA Namibia. So with that said, we are live at Palm Hotel. This beautiful venue was proudly brought to you by Palm Hotel. And the episode is also proudly brought to you by Tipsy Rabbit Hole. Thank you so much, guys. Please do not forget to like, share. I like the share button more than the like button. But share and subscribe, please. Bye.